Welcome to Academy of Tone number 60. Today, the very last time from our empty, almost empty video room here in Saarbrücken, and we are about to move to our new place. And as good things come to those who wait, we didn't want to rush it. So we prepared this special episode with two things, with Ciyo Brown, that killer, real jazz man from London, UK. And I have a very, very long interview with him that we will show you about all the insights into his background, his life, his history, how he came to the UK, how his life was in the UK, how he turned into the musician that he is now. Kind of, very, very interesting. And then we will show you a little bit about how our new studio is set up, which is exciting too, because it takes many steps to turn a regular room into a proper video studio. On the other hand, good things come to those who wait. Maybe there's a lot of customers who wants to buy the new reduced P quad cortex and they're already waiting for a year and they have still another 20 weeks or whatever to wait for. And good things come to those who wait. And there's guys who wait on the Amp X, and you probably wait a little bit longer for something that is maybe better. We will find out. So it's all exciting, and I'm not about to rush things. So for me, it's very important to do stuff right, to take the time, to work on stuff, and don't do it twice. Do it once and do it right. So that's the thing. Talking about Ciyo, he just gave me, I was on the phone with him last night. He gave me a few things that are new on his side, which I actually wanted to mention. 10 points, the 10 commandments. He's got a new website that just has been launched, which is called www.ciyobrown.com. So you can subscribe there for free and get a free exclusive track, and of course the regular updates. I should do the same with my new website whenever that is ready, but as you know, good things come to those who wait. I'm very patient on my new website. Anyway, then he has a brand new single coming out on the 5th of July, a new album to follow, which will be announced. The album features the Amp-1 Classic and Mercury. He likes the Classic and he likes the Mercury. Anyway, you will find out about that. Ciyo was recently invited to play with an orchestra at the Hampstead Jazz All-Stars at the famous Cardigan Hall in London. He is also preparing a series of live performances with a new organ-based jazz trio, and he was invited. He was very happy to announce me on Channel 4, which is the British national television channel, with a blues trio with him, Ciyo, on guitar, Neville Malcolm, who was playing drums for George Benson and Paul Robinson, and a vocalist called Alex Brooker. So that's the long Ciyo Brown interview. But we want to start with Andrew Matthews. He's only 17, just finished his degree, and he's from Portland, Oregon. He has been connected with Jennifer Batten. She also lives there, and he kind of took a few lessons with Jennifer, and then I got notice of the guy, and he is all over the place on the internet. Quite interesting how people are doing, the music thing today, being that young at that age, and living in that new times with the COVID and still doing stuff and getting somewhere. So very, very interesting to see that interview as well. I'm here on the live chat, so I will follow up, and if you do have any questions, please write them now and I can interact with you guys, and we will see you next week from our new location with Rich again and see whatever this will be. Very exciting, looking forward to that. So enjoy our interviews. Cheers. Andrew Matthews, hey, it's a big pleasure to have you on our Academy of Tone live stream here. You are only 17, which is kind of wow to me. Most of our audience is older, but I actually remember the days when I was 17, and just thinking about you made me start to think about my past too. So what made you start to do music and play the guitar?
Well, yeah, that's kind of weird growing up in my time as a Generation Z kid. There was a bit of, none of my family are really musicians, just one of my great uncles. And, it was maybe I was like 12 or something. I was in like middle school and I was listening to music on like Pandora, streaming and stuff. And so I kind of took my taste sort of from what my mom was listening to, a lot of like 80s stuff, but, she likes a lot of classic rock and 70s stuff too. So I kind of took it from there, and I loved bands like Journey and Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and stuff, and branched out from there to metal and classic hard rock and blues.
Yeah. So what are like your classmates listening to when you go to school? What kind of music is on their iPhones and wherever they listen, or Spotify?
A bit different, I guess. A lot more hip hop and pop and all that. I don't really listen to that too much.
Yeah, and how do they feel about you playing the guitar? Are you the weird kid, or is it like this guy is from last century, or is it cool, or how does it feel?
Well, it probably is more the weird kid kind of thing. I'm not really too open about it at school because I know it's not really a common thing that kids do these days. But it's great to have, other communities outside of school for music. And of course, when I branched out playing live and all that, finding people who also played music,
Sure. And what is this thing that you are doing to get somewhere? When I was 17, I definitely had the plan of touring with a band, going on tour, form my own band, write my own songs, maybe do a few covers here and there. But original material was kind of the thing to do back in my days when I was like a teenager. And funnily, I started with 13, kind of late too, similar like to you.
Yeah, same.
And the funny thing is, some people, they start very early, 5 or 6 or whenever. But I found some of them, of course, are kind of wunderkinder, what's the English word, like extremely talented. But those guys that start late and discover it as a serious hobby, they become great musicians. And I have a lot of friends in my age who are similar to my story. And it seems like when you start a bit later, it's like, man, you have to come up with, how you say, maybe a strategy or something like that gets you somewhere. Yeah. At least I had to do that. And then I was more structured and I learned a lot. And, of course, my aim was to form a band and rehearse and do that thing. But what about you? What about the internet? What is about today?
Well, yeah, I do envy those people who were able to start out, even if it was their parents forcing them at like 7 years old to take formal piano lessons or guitar lessons and all that. But yeah, I think I started at a pretty good time. Yeah, 13 years old, got my first guitar for Christmas, you know.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, that puts me in the same kind of position where I'm starting relatively late. And yeah, maybe just this past year in 2020 is when I kind of realized I have to, really buckle down and get serious if I want to get somewhere. You know, I became so much more diligent and disciplined in like my guitar practice and what I'm doing online since at that time, and still that's pretty much all we have. You know, doing stuff online and doing that. It's really helped my musicianship. I'm learning stuff all the time. You know, learning solos, as you know, that I put out stuff multiple times a week. You know, that's really helped.
Yeah. So when I grew up, there was no internet. But for you, I mean, the internet is probably a great source of information, inspiration, and whatever. You can listen to tons of different guitar players from all over the globe, and of course, you can spread out your music as well. So, how are you using kind of the internet, and how? I mean, first for your input, and second for your output. Do you have a strategy there?
Yeah, I mean, it's developing all the time. Yeah, with internet, that's pretty much everything that we've got, well, that I've got right now as a young person. But yeah, it's just a whole world of music and that I can discover online. And it's actually kind of hard that way since, there's so much music in the past and that's still being created. It's kind of hard to keep up and listen to everything that, I should be hearing. But yeah, I am trying to keep the input going and, listen to different music and learn from other guitar players from the past and current, and yeah, and use Instagram and social media as a way of outputting, even if it's just guitar solos, improvisation, which is what I'm doing more of recently, and growing my online presence to help also secure gigs in person, local stuff too.
Right. And you took some lessons with Jennifer Batten, or how does the whole thing work?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I guess that was late 2019, just before COVID started. Yeah, at this local guitar shop at 5 Star Guitars, we learned that Jennifer's local in town and she teaches. And so I started that, and it's been yeah, really great. I haven't really had a lot of lessons, privately with her, since not a whole lot of time. And yeah, that's been really great. She actually offered to let me borrow one of your amp ones. She had one, and I was like, I was already like getting this AC-15 here. I was like, I've got a lot of on my plate right now. Is playing, gigs, playing at local bar and stuff.
Right.
But yeah, it was really fun, and of course, in February, March, COVID hit, and so yeah, that last lesson was canceled, and I ended up doing it later in the year on Zoom. But yeah, it was really cool when she started the Guitar Cloud Symposium in August. I attended that first one. Yeah, she just gathered a bunch of great teachers that she's worked with, and it's been a really great experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think now she's at the whatever 5th, 6th, or maybe 10th. I don't even know. Is it like monthly now?
Yeah. So it started with the big weekend event, and she's gone to doing it alternating each month. 1 month do the full weekend. Next month do a deep dive, which is just a smaller scale, but kind of an all-day Saturday event of diving deep into a concept, whether it's like Guitar Heroes, like each of the teachers, they dive into these guitar players' styles, and one of them was creating an album and all that. But yeah, I've been to, I think, or at least a couple, 2 or 3 of the full weekends. And recently I got to meet Steve Lukather. Because they also
him, really?
Yes, yeah, they have special guests for each of the big weekends, and Yeah, that was really cool because I actually played Steve Lukather's solo for his most recent album, and she showed that to him during the live thing. So that was pretty cool, getting to talk with him.
Yeah, I mean, Steve Lukather is also one of my heroes, and I only met him very, very briefly at a trade show. And it's like somebody said, blah blah, you know him, and we go. Of course, I know Steve Lukather, and he said, oh, maybe not. And then we took a photo for the press, kind of guys, But I mean, he was always a cool guy, and I highly admire his work. I mean, back in the days with Toto 4 and Toto 1 and whatever, I mean, all that's, and him as a session guitar player, he played on so many records. Lionel Richie's Running with the Night, or whatever that song is called, unbelievable solo, and it's supposed to be a first take too. One of those. Yes. Okay, I'm good to go now, and the producer says you're finished.
I know. That's something I really strive for. Is I haven't gotten there quite yet, but I'd love to be able to develop that. He has such an inner sense of the parts for the song, and just to be able to create a story with a guitar solo in just one take. I mean, that's something really, really cool that I'd love to be able to do.
This will come. I have checked your stuff, on a kind of regular basis, because you put out so many videos, and I kind of come across them like every week, at least twice, and then it's like I can tell how you evolve your style, and I can smell that you get there. So that's super, super nice. And what are you using? I mean, gear-wise, you have a Paul Reed Smith guitar?
Yeah, a few. Right now I'm holding Right now I'm holding this. It's an SC58. It's I think a relatively short line of guitars that they put out like 10 years ago. It's kind of designed based on Paul Reed Smith's love of vintage Les Pauls, so hence the SC58, like 58 Les Paul. And a follower actually sold me this because I had one borrowed for a live stream gig that I did in February. And I'd love to get my own. And a follower actually said, well, I got one. Sold me this one. Sounds great. Nice. Love it.
Yeah. And on the M1, what is your favorite channel, or do you have a few settings that you like for yourself, for your style, for this guitar?
Yeah. So, my basic rock tone is on the classic channel. That's what I use most of the time, because a lot of these solos and stuff is more classic rock stuff. And it's really versatile, It cleans up really well. It's real nice and tight. And I usually have the gain around 8. Might be a little bit lower right now. Real great vintage classic rock tones. So that's my main setting. And also on the blue box here. Right now I'm currently liking the 1980 stack. Yeah, for my live stream performance gig thing, I use the 1970, but recently I've just gone to the 1980 one, and I like this one right now.
Yeah, cool. I mean, for me, it's everybody knows that I'm the biggest fan of the 70, but it depends. Sometimes I'm in the mood for the 67 a lot. There's some kind of elegance about it. And the 1980 makes also a lot of sense. There's a guy, maybe you know him, maybe not, from Finland, Mr. Fastfinger. He's this kind of cartoon character that is kind of Steve Vai-ish. If you don't know him, check him out. And he is using the 1980 setting on the blue box. That's his favorite setting. And for me, the blue box is simply something easy to use. Some people just use one setting, and then whenever you do some different styles, it's easy to go to another one. Fast access to the sounds. That is the concept, and there's still room for discovering new tones in the next year or whenever.
Yeah. Back in November, I think it was November or something when I got it. Before that, I was actually playing through a Marshall 4x12 cabinet just over there. And I had that cranked. I
Yeah.
had earplugs and miking that up with the 57, and sounded really cool. But yeah, I got the blue box, and that just gives a whole nother, you know, set of tones and speakers that I can use, and that's perfect for what I do because I'm doing kind of a range
Yeah.
of solos and music on, you know, Instagram and all that. And yeah, so now I'm using just a Fender 1x12 cabinet. I've got that isolated just over there.
Cool. Yeah. Nice. So, what is on your agenda now? And do you have any plans for the near future?
Let's see my agenda right now. Well, I mean, I guess I'm graduating pretty soon from high school. So,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, 17, which means is the last year.
right.
How well are you doing? Are you like a student? Are you C student? Are you in danger to get through?
Well, yeah, the effort I've needed to put in has kind of decreased because, you know, when things went all online and I have 3 classes, everything's pretty dead easy right now. So it doesn't really
Yeah.
take up a whole lot of time out of my day, more time to practice, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, soon I'm hoping to go out and play live again. You know, back in February I did a live stream performance, this local thing, but it's, you know, it's online. It's all over the world now. You can watch on my YouTube channel. I played a 16-song set, something similar of what I would have been doing before the pandemic. You know, playing sets, singing and playing guitar. You know, lots of great rock and blues rock covers. I did that in February live stream, and I'm invited to go back and do that again with a different format actually, like a shorter set of songs and with interviews. So that'll be cool. That might be in a month or two. Don't know about that, but yeah, also just jamming, going to blues jams and getting a live band together and, you know, playing around town.
Are you? Yeah. Are there still any like jam clubs around Portland? I mean, you live in Portland,
Yes,
right?
yeah, Portland, Oregon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few that I would go to. There's this place, Trails End Saloon, which I would just go in there, sit in, and it's a real straight blues jam thing.
Okay.
And then there's this place in Vancouver, Washington, called Billy Blues, and there that was when I kind of had the freedom to actually play my own sets of music. Yeah, because these were youth jams. These are at bars, so they kind of had to set something up so I could go there and play, even though, of course, I'm a minor under 21. But yeah, that was really cool, and you know, my sets just started growing, and I was introducing other musicians other than the house band there, and yeah, really fun. And I'm hoping to do that again real soon. Looks like that will be possible.
Yeah, absolutely cool. Hey man, is there anything? First, we have all the links to reach out to you here on our live stream. Do you have anything we should promote at this point? I mean, do you have a website?
Yeah. First of all, check out my website, andrewmatthewslive.com. Created before live was destroyed, you know. So yeah, andrewmatthewslive.com. And of course,
Right.
with the same thing, Andrew Matthews Live, you can find me on Instagram. I got a bunch of YouTube videos and Facebook too. And yeah, check out I just recently uploaded a remixed version of my live performance from February. So that's up there now.
Cool.
16 songs. It's got timestamps and everything. It can jump around. Cool stuff. So yeah, it was recorded live, but I was able to sit in with a local musician, and you know, he owns a studio, and I was able to sit in and remix the concert to get the levels a bit better and all that, so it should sound a lot better now on my YouTube channel.
Yeah. So how do you feel listening to yourself to record it live? I mean, I've been in this situation many times because I released, I don't know how many, 3-4 live albums of myself, and most of my albums I mixed myself, or at least co-produced in a way. So I know all the crap that I played.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, oh fuck, what did I do there? You know, I wish I would hit that note.
Yeah, what was I thinking? But you just kind of do it in the moment.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, for me, it's always like half of of doing that thing is like, okay, it's not that bad, and the other half is like, oh fuck, it's like because I can read my own thoughts when I play. It's like I know what my intention was, and sometimes I got that, and maybe I got even more, and sometimes I can feel when I listen back to my live improvisations, like, okay, I know what I was planning to do or whatever, on what I had in mind, but I couldn't do it the right way. It sounds still okay for other people, but for me, it's like, oh man, I missed to get this right.
Yeah. Listening back, I think I did a pretty good job because that was, my first recorded live performance. I didn't really have to fix too much, just balancing levels and okay, yeah, maybe I punched in just one note. That's about it. But yeah,
Cool.
that was a really cool experience, especially, of how, early on in my musical thing that I'm in, it was really cool to get that 16 songs out there.
Absolutely. Hey man, it's been a big pleasure to have you here on the Academy of Tone, and I'm sure we'll speak sometimes in the future, because I can see, that what you're doing and where you're heading to, and there will be news, and I think we are kind of nicely connected now, and I'm very happy to report the news from Portland and from Andrew Matthews. So hey, thanks for having you, and
yeah, great to be
Take
here
care.
on the Academy of Tone. I love this show. Yeah, maybe we can hook up on the January NAMM show. I'm hoping to get over there.
I already booked my flights and the house, so I'll be there. No
Of
worries.
course, yeah.
Hey, so see you soon, and cheers, guys.
Yeah, see ya.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a real big pleasure to have a real jazz guy here on our live stream, Mr. Ciyo Brown from London, UK. I'm a big fan of his music and his playing, his style. He is the real deal jazz musician. This is, like I always imagine somebody that is dedicated to jazz music and more. But for me, I was blown away by the way he plays jazz. And yeah, it's so great to have you here on the Academy of Tone live stream. We met before somewhere in the UK on some trade shows.
Yes.
And we did a little event thing. And then I think when I was at Anderton's, one day we met in a bar next to Anderton's.
That's right. Yes, yeah. We did an interview. It was the first interview that we did,
Yeah.
and that was thrilling for me.
Ah, yeah. So, yeah, same here. Absolutely. So for me, personally, I'm self-taught, and I'm a rock player, and I've always had this big thing about the magic of jazz. And I tried to get a few lessons here from a local guy, and it didn't last very long because the teacher was kind of a very radical man. I asked him about a few things about Pat Metheny, which was kind of very light jazz music. And he said, this guy is the country singer of jazz, kind of, he really talked him down. And this was the end of my jazz career, basically. So, but the way, I mean, you are so open and you are doing so many different styles. I just admire people that actually play the real jazz thing. And so for me, how did you get into jazz? What were your early influences? What was, the things that made you start to play that, and maybe also what are your current influences?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on your show. I feel really, really honoured to be on the show. And those moments that you recounted when we met at Anderton's, it was just fantastic. Because by that time, I obviously knew who you were through Mac from Ivan Morantz. And it was just fantastic to meet you. And then, of course, we did the trade show. Now, in terms of, let me just say this first about Pat Metheny. Pat Metheny is a phenomenal musician. The guy is phenomenal. So I'd find it very difficult to entertain or understand how someone couldn't at least give him that props. The guy is a phenomenal musician, and he's a Mr. Nice Guy as well, and he's a great jazz player. Now, in terms of how I got into to jazz, it's really through my parents. I listened to a lot of jazz music in the home. We had everything in the home. I was born in Jamaica. I came here when I was in England, to England when I was just a baby. But we were exposed to so many different forms of music. And a lot of Caribbean people, they listened to lots of different things. So we had the calypso. We had what's called mento, which is similar to calypso, but it's more the Jamaican flavour, if you like. And it has its roots in Ghana, right? And mento, which was, I'd say, arguably Jamaica's first national music, as I said, has its roots in Ghana. But, there were a lot of West Indian musicians who brought mento and calypso to America, and had a major influence on jazz as far back as the 20s and 30s upwards, So my father's record collection and my mum's record collection, that's a big one for me. That's really where it started. And then also listening to the radio. So in our home, we had mento, there was calypso, calypso is more of a Trinidadian thing. We had this classical music, there was bossa nova. We had blues, obviously there was jazz. We had pop music, there was rock music, R&B. We had everything, and I loved all of it. So that's really where it began for me. And my father was a guitarist as well, so I actually come from a long lineage of guitarists in Jamaica who played banjo and mandolin as well. But it was my first guitar hero was my dad from the age of 3. I remember we'd sit there as kids and listen to him sing and play, and it fascinated me. So he spotted that from a very early age. And then I started to play a bit of classical. I didn't play classical for a long time, but I played for a couple of years. And I studied pieces, etc. And I learnt fingerstyle playing. And so my ears were always very open to anything that interested me. So I tend not to discriminate at all between music. Even if I listen to something that ordinarily I wouldn't listen to, if it intrigues me, I like it, So I'm just very open, you see. So that's why I am the way that I am. It's actually, it's my personality, Thomas, you know what I mean?
I could feel this right away. And this is like, when we spoke first time, it was, this very open feeling. Here's a little personal story about Jamaica. I was in Jamaica 20 years as a tourist once. And I had being there, just spent some vacation there with my girlfriend. And then, of course, as a tourist, you meet some of the people, and some guys told me, hey, if you are interested, I can drive you around the island and, show you other bits and pieces, not just only the beach. And I said, you know what? Well, let's do it for fun. And what happened was we went up to the mountains where all the trees are, where everything is kind of nice and green. And he was actually visiting some of his family, and maybe it was his brother, I don't know. It was a real Rasta man, okay. And I didn't felt that touristic in a way. I felt like, nice people, just nice people. Of course, everybody's doing the job, and there's a tourism thing, and they all have to live on something, but I felt nice. And then I was totally impressed by this Rasta man, because we started to talk about politics. And he knew everything about German politics, about the DDR. He knew about Honecker. And this guy is from, he grew up in near my hometown. He knew that little village where Honecker came from. I was shocked how intelligent this Jamaica man was. So, I'm a big, this was one of my very, very positive experiences with Jamaica, besides the reggae music and the nice weather and the mosquitoes.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, I'm as a Jamaican myself, I consider myself to be Jamaican first, and then British. Obviously, English, I'm English. I'm of African origin because of the history and stuff. But Jamaica is an amazing place. It's just like in other countries, it's filled with brilliant people. People have brilliant minds. People are very, very educated, very, very, very intelligent, and very, very worldly in their views. They're not insular. They have an understanding of what's happening around the world. And not enough, I believe, is actually mentioned or said about the brilliance that emanates from Jamaica and the Caribbean islands, in terms of it's not just about being a great musician or sports. There are great doctors, there are great lawyers, there are great scientists, great inventors, etc. And so the contribution for that's relatively small country to the world is absolutely phenomenal. But it doesn't just stop at sports and music. It actually goes way beyond, way beyond that. And so that's why I like to keep my learning and my view on life just very, 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 very open, because that's how you learn. And I'll say, actually, there is a German presence in Jamaica. There's a pretty heavy German presence in Jamaica, more than you'll actually realise. Spanish presence, Indian presence. It's actually known as the melting pot of the Caribbean, because it actually has quite a lot of different sort of cultures there. So and so that's why, when you think about the music, one of my big influences where guitar is concerned is Ernest Ranglin. Ernest Ranglin is an absolute. He's the godfather of jazz guitar in Jamaica. Yeah, but in terms of his world standing is phenomenal. He was once a resident jazz guitarist at Ronnie Scott's. He's and I had the pleasure of meeting him once, and had a really good chat with him about his roots and stuff. So I was exposed to his music, and of course he played a lot of the musicians in the Caribbean, and I'm going to speak specifically about Jamaica. Some of them went to America. Yeah, so they left Jamaica and they went to America. Yeah, and they played with big bands in America. They played a lot of jazz, etc., in the States and Canada. And then Ernest Ranglin eventually went to Canada as well. He still has his roots in Jamaica, of course, and he's still there quite a bit. So the influences where Jamaican musicians are concerned is just phenomenal. So I take a lot of my early learning, if you like, from that well of information, together with all the other things I was exposed to musically. As also a British person.
Yeah, and so what made your family then move to the UK? Then
my parents came very after the Windrush. The Windrush was 1948. My parents came more than 10 years after that, and it was really the allure of work. You know, a lot of people from an economic perspective left the Caribbean because there was this promise that you come to the UK, you'll be well looked after, you'd find work, etc. Yeah, and so they set up home in the UK, like the vast majority of the Caribbean people did who came here. Most of them came here with a view to maybe just stay a few years and then go back, etc. But the vast majority of them actually stayed here. So it was really just looking for, at the time, what they perceived to be a better life. Of course, when they came here, firstly it was cold, so that was difficult to cope with. And then I guess you know, not being welcomed in a way that you were told you would be welcomed caused a whole range of social problems, etc. But then they found a way to galvanize and get through that. So it's that mindset that makes those people so determined, because historically and ancestrally we sort of come from struggle, if you like. So we understand the DNA of struggle. So it makes you determined. So that notion is passed down to the children. And I remember my parents always telling me, never give up, never give up. My father would say, nothing ventured, nothing gained. And he'd say, try stuff, try it and see if it works, whatever it is. But they always said, education, education. So I always went down the educational route, etc., and did music on the side. But my dad said to me when I was about 15 or 16, he said, do not do music full time. I was about 15 or 16, and I really listened to what he said, because I was umming and ahhing, etc. I didn't think I would actually end up being a full-time musician, and I've never been, and I'm still not. I've never been a full-time musician. But what my father said to me, that really galvanized my thoughts and made me realize, make sure you get your education, get your qualifications, pursue that, and do the music at the same time, and then you have choices.
Cool. Here, this is something that I found when I was in the UK, the Viz magazine. Are you familiar with this? This is like the cheesy British humor, which I also enjoy, because, you know, having all this kind of heavy load from our past, you know, even the German past. I mean, it's like, you know, they make joke about Hitler and stuff like that. And I think my generation is a different generation, and it's sometimes good to have a good laugh on stuff. I mean, it's like, you know, they created that advertising here in the Viz magazine, something like, you know, as German housewives already knew, you know, everything gets blitzsauber, clean with liquid Hitler, you know. And I mean, it's a spicy one. It's a, you know, but the way it's having a good laugh about it is a good attitude towards it, and that's something that I really enjoy about people in the UK, having a lot of problems and tension and stuff, but there's always a good sense of humor, you know. If it's totally fucked up, you know, there's a joke for it, and that's a good relief. Sometimes some Germans are too stubborn, or, you know, it's like, oh guys, you know, you know, relax, you know. And that's, you know, every country has a little of its own culture in that way, and of course you got both. You got, you know, the Jamaican background, and then raised in the UK with all this kind of different cultures and problems. Of course, how to get to find your life in that kind of society, etc. And I can feel that you have a great attitude. This is what I always was very impressed about you.
Thank you.
You know, it's like you have this ambition to be a good musician, and, you know, to learn, always never stop to learn. You are, you know, we talked about the amp, and then you ask questions, and by the way you ask the questions, I can tell that you are intelligent. And this is always a good thing. Okay, I do my thing. I'm a bit more technical guy probably than most musicians. but you know, I can read people's
Yes.
mind by the
Yeah, I
questions.
hear you.
Yeah.
I totally hear you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very serious about what I do in life. I'm fun loving as well. My God, I love to laugh. I get that from my late mother. My dad was more. My late father was on the more serious side. But you know, your parents give you different things. But I think it's important to try and wear a smile on your face. I mean, at the moment, we're in this lockdown, the pandemic. You know, it's very, very, very challenging. You know, but in the face of much adversity, I always try to just stand tall as much as I can. It's not easy, and you won't always stand strong. And you know, sometimes we need other people to pick us up. And in fact, on that point, how I approach music, for quite a while now, I actually don't separate it from the rest of my life anymore. I don't think, right, okay, I'm doing my law stuff or lecturing or whatever, then I'm doing this, and then I'm going to do music now. I don't think like that anymore. I don't compartmentalize it like that anymore. It's one big whole experience. So when as I approach the guitar to pick it up, I'm bringing a lot of experiences, thoughts. Sometimes it's baggage. Sometimes it's good baggage. Sometimes you bring an attitude towards the instrument, and I personify this instrument. I'm actually in love with the guitar. And that passion that I have now, I've always had it ever since I was the age of 3. And I do remember occasions when I started to lose the passion. And when I realised why, it was actually the business side of the music that can really, really get you so anxious sometimes, you know? And also when you're struggling with the instrument and you're trying to play well, you know, these are all the kind of emotions that we all have. But all the emotions, good, bad, and different, that I have on my instrument, I have that in other areas of my life. So it becomes like a transferable skill, if you like, you know. So if I'm doing a show and I walk away thinking, I didn't play as well as I should have, and I've been through loads of those kind of emotions and situations. I think, well, okay, why was that? Well, maybe I didn't practice properly or hard enough, or maybe I over practiced, or maybe there was just something else about that day that upset my whole vibration. And sometimes you can practice till the cows come home and you end up not playing well. Now, you do, the same thing happens when you go into work, or you're having a conversation with friends or family or whatever. It's the same emotion. So what I try to do is just try to adjust my mind so I'm thinking clearly. If I can get rid of as much clutter as possible, but then remember to enjoy, where the guitar is concerned, our music, is to enjoy it. So if I'm telling myself that about music, then I've got to tell myself that about life. Try and enjoy life. Life is really difficult sometimes, but it's brilliant sometimes as well. And then it can be what you make it, if you sort of mean, you know. I try to have a holistic view to life, and I try to embrace all the good things that people do. And where guitar is concerned, this is such a difficult instrument to play. You know, some bits of it are okay. Well, but my God, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, to make sense of this guitar, you've got to do what I say is the if you're practicing something, you've got to do it slow. You've got to do that da 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 da. You know, you've got to have that da 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 moments. That's what I call it before you can start. You know what I mean? You've got to start things slowly and work your way through it and try to understand it. So when I was listening to Ernest Ranglin and I listened to the Jamaican musicians and the way that they interpreted jazz, they interpreted it through these genres called blue beats, right? And then ska, and then it became rocksteady, and then it became reggae. But it's so closely related to jazz. It's unbelievable. And a lot of them were jazz musicians. And I used to think that jazz influenced reggae. And I kind of do believe that, but it's worked the other way. After my research and when I thought about it, they both influenced each other. Because reggae is a distant cousin of, well, it's a cousin of rocksteady, which came before reggae, which is then a cousin of ska, right? And then some people say ska. It's actually ska. I'm going to say it in a Jamaican accent. It's not ska, but it's cool. If you want to say ska, it's ska. That's how Jamaicans say it. And before that, you had blue beat, right? But then blue beat and ska kind of coexisted. Yeah, you had a blue beat label, and then you had this a number of labels where they made ska music. One was Island, the early days of Island Records. Yeah,
very
absolutely.
famous.
And they kind of coexisted, but they had a different sound. And the blue beat, which you generally found on the blue beat label, hence the name, had a more almost like a kind of a bouncy big band swingy kind of feel. So with ska, I'll show you. With ska would you get something like this. So it's very rigid, tack 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 on the offbeat, yeah.
Tack,
but the blue beat tended to be. So you got that da 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 da, very very big band, and the reason for that is because in the 50s. The Jamaicans, when a lot of them were able to afford radio, rediffusion, etc., they were picking up a lot of music from America. So they had the records, which would be imported, but they had the radios, and that grew. So they were listening to all the big band stuff from the 40s and the 50s, so they were influenced by that. But the reason why I believe it's a circular motion is because mento, which is a much older art form, found its way. You can hear it in... Duke Ellington's Caravan, very Africanesque, but you can hear the mento leading. So the history of it is really important, because what it does for me, it gives it more meaning. When I'm playing jazz and I'm playing reggae, I've got a better awareness or sensibility and how the two things merge. That's why I love doing jazz reggae. I love fusing it. Ernest Ranglin, there are guys like the late Tommy McCook, who was one of the great saxophonists from Jamaica, Roland Alfonso, those guys. These are the older cats who were around from 40s, 50s, etc., and were part of the whole evolution of Jamaican music. It's a fascinating history.
Yeah, and I think it's great to understand a bit about the roots of music, because when you go back to the roots, you get the truth, or maybe the true ingredients of the thing. At least for me as a rock guy, when I think of blues in a way, this always infuses my playing with more meaning.
Yes,
you know what I mean. If I go back to the roots where the music comes from, there's a certain honesty to the music, because this is where the whole thing has been created. I'm not saying modern styles are not good. No, I'm just saying, for me personally, going back in the past is something that brings up a certain energy in a puristic way that will come back in my playing, just by having that kind of ideal thing in my head. It puts everything under another, like a star, and this gives me inspiration while playing. I play differently just because of that mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, I think something that I hear other musicians say is it's important to actually understand older forms of music, because if you jump forward, obviously we're all different people, we're born in different eras, but if I think of myself, I've always listened to old stuff, so I get a sense of where the new stuff has come from. You know what I mean? And it just gives it gives me a better understanding, and that's why when I talk about jazz, I talk passionately about jazz, but I talk probably even more passionately about Jamaican music as well, because of its importance in the history of music and how it's influenced a lot of other forms. And I was just explaining to you about the blue beat and ska, and from that you had what's called rocksteady, and actually the ska or the rocksteady was like a slowed down version of the ska. So where, as you had in ska, right, with rocksteady, it was like. Yeah, you had it at that tempo, yeah? And so it was the same offbeat thing, but it was just slower.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think that's all about, again, the groove. And this is like,
absolutely.
You know, the groove is such an important element of music. And, you know, today we can learn thousands of licks from guys, you know, on YouTube and stuff. But in any genre of music, the groove is the foundation of everything. I mean, and I learned, you know, like in rock music, for me, it's very simple. If you play some AC/DC to people, you understand rock music because they play straight eighth in a way, you know.
Yes.
Okay, this is, and then after a while you get the groove, and you have to have the right tempo. I was way too fast now, you know. Okay, sorry, but this is like to understand the music, and then you bias to that thing, and this is the starting point, and every kind of thing builds up on that foundation. And for me, I don't really get the jazz thing really, but it's like sometimes I play a little.
Yeah. Yes.
So when I kind of start and set the groove, this brings me in the mood where I can go.
Yes.
So, okay,
yes.
That keeps me going, and that keeps me, even though I play wrong notes, even though I play bullshit, it kind of keeps the music somewhere, you know.
John Coltrane said there's no such thing as a wrong note. You know?
As wrong notes.
And I think what's interesting about that, Thomas, is that it's what you make it. You know, there's definitely an attitude to have to sound like a jazz player. There's an attitude to have to sound like a rock player, a shredder, a blues player, or you know, whatever, basically, a reggae player. They all have attitude to. You're right about the groove thing. I totally agree with that it's about getting into that groove. And I think that's one of the things that I enjoy about doing completely different forms of music, because the challenge is to get into the groove of each of those genres. And I like that challenge. You know?
Can you tell us a bit about the reggae groove? I mean, you know, reggae was a big thing, or is still a big thing, but, you know, Bob Marley was the ambassador of reggae worldwide. And I remember when I was a teenager, my father didn't have any clue. He worked at the university, and he said, you know, there's some Jamaican guitar music playing tonight. And I just picked up the guitar, and I thought, okay, why not? He tried to be nice to me. He had no clue. My father was only listening to classical music, so I didn't know what I expected. I came to the university. What I saw were hundreds of people smoking dope joints. Me being a teacher, my father was like, oh, it smells funny here. And then the band playing, I still remember, was Steel Pulse. And this was an experience. I've never heard this kind of music before in my whole entire life. I was expecting some rock guitar music, but, you know, some of my father's students, you know, didn't tell them about what reggae was. So anyway, we've been there, and I heard this beautiful music with this low bass. You know, I thought this is cool too. I mean, there was no flashy guitar stuff, but this was groove all the way, and it was this was a groove experience, and it was a sound experience.
Well,
too. You know, with a big
The thing about reggae music is that I mean, like every form of music, right? All forms of music have a groove, right? But they're all characterized by different things, and the groove in reggae is it's just indescribable. If I just take you back a bit, we spoke about, and I'll come back to the Steel Pulse thing and what you said about Bob Marley. You know, we had I said something about blue beat and ska and rocksteady. But one thing I just want to say as well about rocksteady is if you look at the various genres, that they're characterized by how musicians express the performance. That is just amazing. And in Jamaica, as I said, the premier guitarist was Ernest Ranglin, but there were others. There was a guy called Lynn Tate, who was from Trinidad, right? And he introduced a style which guys like, there was a guy called, the late Hux Brown, H-U-X, Hux Brown, a great reggae guitarist. Great, yeah, because his chord flavors were beautiful and his picking style, which I'll talk about in a second, was amazing. And so essentially, now there was a tune, you may or may not know this tune, but there was a tune by Desmond Dekker and the Aces called 007, and this was in a rocksteady period, just before it turned into reggae, and it went like this. This is the opening. Yeah. Now, interestingly, when this that comes from mento. So when you hear guitar players who are playing rhythm, I do this a lot myself. So if I went right, that's very mento. Yeah. So that's they mento. Incorporate that mento in rocksteady and reggae. And so what Lynn Tate did with that tune, he was a genius guitarist, really was, in the sense of his chordal playing, his tonality, and his choice of notes, right? So in rocksteady, before it became reggae, you'd hear things like that kind of stuff. And Jamaicans love the sixth sound. They love this. Yeah. So they all had an understanding of jazz music. They had an understanding of chord tones, etc. Right, and how to express them. Yeah. And then what happened with the reggae thing now? Yeah. So what happened is the it was a bit more sped up. Yeah. Okay. And then you could almost hear, there was the late Toots Hibbert from Toots and the Maytals, who did tunes like, he did a whole range of tunes like, Oh gosh, sorry. There's so many. I'm trying to think, but he did Monkey Man, a tune called Monkey Man, which was a big, massive tune. But what you'd hear in a lot of those tunes is that you'd hear things like, if I go back to Let Them Say It. Right? So that style there is called, some people call it, Jamaicans call it second bass, because you're kind of mimicking the bass. Sometimes people call it picking.
Yeah.
But another phrase is flacker, you know, F-L-A-K-K-A. So you've got this.
Flacker. Yeah.
Yeah. That, when you think about it, it sounds very percussive, doesn't it? Like it's a percussion player. And you can hear the rhythmic stuff going on. It's very, very African-esque. And then with the reggae thing now, you had things like very shuffly. Tons of mento in there. Tons of mento.
Yeah.
So that was late 60s, and then the reggae started to change a bit, and then you had the more let's say you mentioned Bob Marley, so he's got a tune called Natural Mystic.
Yeah.
So you got that. So you had what's called a chop or the chip.
Yeah.
I'd use a sharper sound. Actually. Right. Or
Chuck.
And people think it's easy to play. Well, anybody can go.
No.
But if you're not feeling it and you're not putting it in the right pocket, it's not a chip. It's not. So you've got to dampen the string. Now, the reason why, apart from being a Jamaican, why I actually need to understand that and I love doing it is because I incorporate that in many forms of music. I even do it in jazz sometimes. So if I'm doing you know what I mean? So I put that in there. Every influence I can think of, I put it in there. Bob Marley and I have to say Bob Marley and the Wailers, right? So you have to talk about the late and great Peter Tosh and Bunny Livingston, Bunny Wailer. Yeah. They were fantastic musicians and writers, all three of them. And then you had the I3s, the backing vocalists, Marcia Griffiths, Rita Marley, Judy Mowat, sensational. But there were other groups like, Burning Spear, the Gladiators. There were a whole range of Jamaican groups and vocalists, who were just absolutely amazing and made a massive contribution to reggae. So Bob was up there, right, and he paved the way for a lot of people. But there were other bands, a whole range of other bands that didn't quite make it to that plateau, like Mighty Diamonds and bands like that. These are great Jamaican bands, you see. And then reggae's kind of permeated and gone through, different sort of forms. Now, you mentioned Steel Pulse. I had the pleasure of actually touring with Steel Pulse in America and Europe, and it was just sensational. I mean, really, really, when you get on stage with a band and you enjoy the music, it was sensational. It was absolutely sensational. And they, I would say, along with the likes of Bob, Third World, there's a band called Third World who are absolutely amazing. They actually explored, putting different influences in. So you had that rock and that blues thing. So Bob Marley, there's a guy called Al Anderson, one of the greatest guitarists ever. He was one of the mainstays of the Marley setup. Junior Mervyn is another guitarist. And but Al Anderson he came from a blues background. He's a sensational guitarist.
Right.
There's a track called No Woman, No Cry. It was live at the Lyceum in 1975. Sure. He does a solo, which is like it's a study. It's a masterpiece, it was great. And as I said, having worked with the likes of Steel Pulse, they had that big rock blues thing going on in the reggae music, as Bob did, and other bands. And it was just great hearing that mixture. So for me, my influences are extremely wide, and I can actually go to a number of different palettes of things and think to myself, my God, I've learned so much. I've learned so much working with so many different people. But reggae is very special. Reggae is very, very, very special.
Yeah. Totally agree. And I know some of your clips where you play that music. So for me, you have like two of those amazing genres that you represent for me. I mean, besides other stuff, but your reggae side is just as exciting to me as your jazz side. I mean, first I was caught by the jazz side, but then I discovered the reggae side, and then there's also some sweet soul and more. I mean, you are a man of many, many colors.
You got to try out to be good. Take my advice. Now, yeah. You got to try out.
No, thank you. I think that dimensions is important. Sometimes you might listen to, let's say, a vocalist, right? And you hear a vocalist that's got all the chops in the world, yeah? Can do some amazing things with their voice, gymnastics. And you get another vocalist who is maybe not as broad in their range, but what they do with what they have is absolutely captivating, because they may have different dimensions and not just a they've got different dimensions going on, which actually keeps you interested. And I find that that's one of the markers as to whether you've got someone, so I know when I'm performing whether I've captured someone's attention or not. Not that we're trying to capture attention, but you know what I mean. You're playing stuff, so you're forming a relationship with the audience, and it's just it's an amazing thing to be able to express yourself through music. You know what I'm saying? But you've got to have the experience of going out there and playing. And I say that to a lot of players. We can all practice in our homes, in our bedrooms, in our lounges and stuff, and that's fine. But even when you practice loads, you'll go out and you're going to make mistakes. And the thing is, can you recover? Can you actually recover from that? And when I say that, you've got to get over the, oh my gosh, how did I play like that? My gosh, I'm playing in the wrong key, or what the case may be. And you've got to, or your fingers just weren't working. You've just got to go home, lick your wounds, and tomorrow's another day, and get back on it.
And then, absolutely. And this is the attitude of a true artist. With such an attitude, I thought, Ciyo Brown should be the first artist of the month with BluGuitar. So my question now is, do you remember how long we go back? When did you discover the Amp 1? Do you remember?
I think it was about 2016, about 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah, it was around then.
And so what did the amp do with you? I mean, you picked up this little piece of whatever it is, compact amplifier, and then I think you started with a NANOCAB, or what's your story with the amp?
Yeah, what happened was that it was brought to my attention by Mac, a guy from Ivan Morant's guitar store. I mean, I virtually lived in that store.
Right.
A great bunch of guys, and great instruments. So we were I went in to probably get some strings or something, and we were talking about stuff. And then he said, "Oh, Kai, have you heard of this Thomas Blue amps?" I said, "No." He said, "We've got one upstairs. Why don't you try one?" So I took one of his 335s and plugged it in upstairs, and I thought, "Oh, this is interesting." Now, at first glance, if you like, in fact, literally when I saw it, I thought, "Oh, that looks nice and compact," and it was actually through the Fat Cap.
Fat Cap, right?
Yeah, okay. And so I tried it, and I was there for probably about half an hour, 45 minutes. And at first, when I heard it, there was something different about it, and I wasn't sure if it was something that I would like when I first heard it, only because it sounded so different. But you see, that's me. This is how my personality. You see, when I come across something that is different, even if I may not warm to it straight away, I'm intrigued. By it. So I need to
find out.
I need to find out more. Absolutely. Yeah. So I spent some time, and I'm very grateful that Mac allowed me to do this. So I spent some time just tweaking the knobs and stuff and twiddling about, and then I thought, okay, so if I actually have all the volume and tone knobs totally full on, let's hear what the guitar actually sounds like through this. And so I was tweaking the knobs a bit, and I thought, that's really interesting. So I went away and I thought about it, and then I went online, I did some reading up, then I checked you out, then I could see how serious and geeky you were about sound, and I thought, oh my gosh, that is great. You know what I mean? Because those things excite me. When I meet someone who is a little bit like me in terms of just kind of geeky, kind of really deep. You want to know stuff, and you research. I was really impressed with the work that you had done, and then I saw that you worked with Hughes and Kettner
in the past.
Before,
Sure.
And then you're a real techie guy, and a great guitarist as well. And I thought, wow, this guy's got some stuff going on. So you understand, being a guitarist, you understand the importance of sound, and also having choice and options. Now, and then I thought, right, okay, well, it's actually. It's a rock amp. It's really an amp that's made for rock and maybe shred players. And I spoke to Mac. He said, "Yeah, those guys, they all use it." And I said to Mac, "But Mac, I actually suspect. I think I could probably get a nice warm jazz tone out of it."
Yeah.
So he said, "Well, yeah, go for it." But Mac wasn't surprised to hear me say that, because I've known Mac for a long time. And I said he's a great guy, and he's a great guitar player himself. It was like, well, he kind of expected me to say something like that, because he's got an idea of how my mind works. But anyway, cut a long story short, I decided to go back in the shop and try it again. I thought, right, okay, I've got to have one, basically. So that's when I got in touch with yourself, and then with JHS, etc. And then that's where it started. And I spent ages working away, tweaking. I came up with tons of different configurations.
Right.
And the first couple of gigs I did with that, the result wasn't great. The result wasn't great because I was still at that beginning stage of trying to see how it sounded. And I was using I used the boost, switched the boost off, and then I realised that maybe the boost gain was too high at the side, those little plastic knobs at the side. And I thought, right, okay, it took me to do gigs, right, to get a sound that wasn't great, to go home, try it again, and tweak it until I thought, And whenever I say to myself, that's it, when I hear that voice saying, you got it, I know that I'm actually there. It's everything in my life. So it was great going, a bit risky, but it was great going out to a gig and not sounding great for me to come back and say, well, I believe that I can get this right. And all it was that I needed to understand the frequencies and then how that related to the guitars. And I generally use these arch tops through it, although I use a lot of solid body guitars through it. I've even, as you know, I've used acoustic guitar through your amp and it sounds amazing. So I'm not afraid to try stuff. I mean, I've got an AER amp, and AER amps, which is German
acoustic amp. I know.
They are for me the greatest amps for guitars with acoustic guitars. And I actually I A/B'd your it was a classic I was using. I'm still using the classic actually, as well as a Mercury, but it was a classic at the time, and I A/B'd it with the AER, right? And the difference was not so great that you could say, I can clearly hear the difference. I really had to think about it. I even actually went out of the room so I couldn't see the amp, obviously I knew which amp it was, but I just didn't want to look at it, and I thought, my God, this can actually work with acoustic guitar. And so the results were amazing. So that's where my journey started. I love your amps because I found them to be reliable. They project great tonalities. The settings, when you go to change your settings, it's very sensitive. Whereas with all of the other amps I've ever had in my life, you'd have to do like 1 dB, a 1 dB sweep to actually really hear the sound, or sometimes even more. With yours, you've just got to tweak it and you can hear the sound, So with the classic, my settings are 6-4-2, so it's bass on 6, 4 mid and 2 with the treble. With the Mercury, I found that with the Mercury, it's got a tighter sound, which is really nice. It really cuts through even more because the classic is warmer. Very analogy, and I love that. And the Mercury is a tighter sound, a little bit more top-endy, and then you've got to be like careful with the bright end if you're playing jazz. So I've got, I'll tell you what I've got. I've got the setting I'm using at the moment is, so I've got, right? That's, I've got 8 bass, 4, 8 bass, 3 mid and 1 tops. I've got 8, 3, 4. Sometimes I'll go 9. Sometimes I'll have the mid on 4.5 or 3.5. So I do those in between things, And basically, I've got at the moment, if I just pop it there, I've got tone and level full up using a pig. With my thumb. Really nice warm sound. So if I knock the tone back a bit to maybe something like maybe 5, and then the volume, just take that down to say 8 or something. Obviously quieter, but you know what I mean? It gives me all the warmth that I need, and it gives me the cut as well. So when I'm actually doing like the Benson kind of triple stops, I'm getting a cut. And with the single note stuff, so it's just got a really, I just love it. I love your amps.
Yeah.
It gives me everything that I need. And if I want to warm it up more, I've actually got an AER preamp called a Dual Mix. I pop that in there sometimes. You'll see from some of the videos, the YouTube videos.
Yeah.
You know, I've got the amp on and I've got the Dual Mix to give it that extra body if I need it, and even more cut. You know what I mean? But I use your amp in theatre work. I'm part of a theatre production called Cafe Society Swing, and it was just this guitar going straight into the amp one, and I use the NANOCAB, and I just in heaven. And as I said, you know, the tone. The blues stuff. Oh, again.
Yeah.
You know, jazzy blues kind of stuff. So
yeah, nice.
I'm one happy bunny, and you know, ever since buying, actually becoming an endorsee of yours. What your amp has given me, it's given me tonality, it's given me clarity. I've got a range of different types of sounds. I use I use your Strat, actually, your model Strat. Is it the V6?
V6.
Yeah, I use that through it. I've got a
yeah.
Vola that I use through it. I've got a whole range of guitars that I use through your amp, and completely reliable. Never failed.
Any issues.
Completely reliable.
And when you play the Strat, you have different settings on the amp?
Yeah, because when I don't always use the boost on the jazz guitar. I do if I just want a bit more presence. But I generally always use the boost when I've got the solid body guitars, when I'm actually playing the more funk stuff, a lot of funk, blues, and the reggae stuff. So I've got that, you know what I mean? And you know, I might have 6, 4, 4 sometimes. So the treble before. What I've noticed actually is that one of the differences between the two amps as well is that the Mercury, I find that the reverb actually on the Mercury sounds better quality than the classic.
Sure.
Yeah. And then the tops the Mercury is a slightly brighter amp, so I don't have to pump the tops up too much. On the classic, the tops, when I'm doing the other stuff, reggae, R&B, and all the rest of it, I'd probably have that at 4 or something. So I'd probably have 6/4/4 or 5/4/4. So I do actually vary these settings to taste. And then I use a bunch of pedals with it as well sometimes.
Yeah. I heard some very cool sounds that you've done with pedals and the M1. Let me ask you a few questions more about the guitar playing side. Like, what is your approach playing? What kind of ideas inspire you? What kind of chords, leads? Is there a theory you follow? Is there anything we can learn from you?
Well, I mean, I guess we can all learn from each other, and basically, sure. I've got a wealth of information in my head, which I'm still, don't get me wrong, I'm still working at this, But what I find is that doing the shows, live performance, playing in the studio, as you know, it really takes you up another notch, as it were, because you then become almost like match fit. So I think about what I'm playing and then just try and let it go. So I've got one of the tunes that I play is a tune called "So Tender," which it's got this. I use this technique that Benson uses quite a lot called temps. fingers, right? And I'm like caressing the strings. So Benson uses this technique that, if I remember correctly, he said he got from or was influenced to play like this by I think it was Errol Garner, right? Where he does this. Right, so I'm just doing that. Yeah. So I use that quite a lot. Right, and the reason why I'm pointing that out is because it's a nice break from when if I'm doing octave stop. Right, very blues there. And I use these things that they call in jazz enclosures, where when you're enclosing something, you're wrapping something around something, aren't you? So if I've got this E note here, right, I'm playing that in G, right, which is the sixth, right? Instead of, sometimes I might go, right, but then I might go, so that is an enclosure. So you get all these little ideas, and then they start to mount up. Right, so I think very much about if I'm in a major 7 situation, I'm asking myself what sort of things can I play. Well, of course, you've got the G major scale. It's all from the G major scale, right? Or I'd actually go up a fifth and play a triad. Indeed. So right, so I'm doing the same movement, but it's giving me some other colours to think about.
Extension notes to the chord to make it more colourful.
Absolutely. And then you've got the arpeggio, right? Right, that's arpeggios. So I'll look at arpeggios. Look at like intervallic playing, where I'm kind of right. So I'll do a lot of grace notes. I'll do that kind of. Yeah. So I just think of rhythms as well. So I'll think a lot about rhythms. How am I playing that rhythm? If I'm going to extend something, how do I actually extend it? I look at arpeggios within arpeggios. Right, then I'll use, sharp 11 kind of things. So you've got that there. Right, so I'm superimposing that C sharp against that G chord, yeah. And then like you've got chromatics as well. So right, and then if I'm in a there's a tune called Stella by Starlight, which I played a little bit earlier on, isn't it? Right, so I've incorporated that E note in that just to give it a bit more flavour, so it's not always. And then so I'd like move melodies and top notes. So I'll go through jazz standards. One of the best ways of learning to play jazz is to learn jazz standards. Learn the melodies so that you can actually start to pick up how the greats actually played melodies and how they used it in their soloing. So I listen to like a lot of Charlie Parker stuff as well, and some of the things that he did. He did some, and so if you pick up lots of different ideas from different people. In fact, can I stop? Right, it's the Charlie Parker bit. I just want to start that Charlie Parker bit again, yeah? So I'll clap,
Yeah.
I listen to, a lot of different players, and people like Charlie Parker, you know, who you'll hear him do things like, yeah, over what's called a 2/5 in jazz. I'll sit there and work on things like, you know, his solo on a tune called Scrapple from the Apple, where he'll do things like, stop, overthinking.
Okay. Yeah.
Right, so I listen to a lot of players, to include the likes of Charlie Parker, who's just absolutely incredible. And also I'll pick up lines like he plays that over. What does that have to do with it? And he'll be back there, you know. So it's little snippets of ideas. You know, and I hear Benson doing things like that as well. You know. So I'll look at a chord. I'll look at the chord properties, how I could extend it. If I'm playing in a E minor, right? You know, you've obviously got E minor type lines, and yeah. So I'd use linear lines. I'd use like Dorian modes, Phrygian modes, but then what I'd do is I'd go down a tone and a half and play like a half diminished, which is very closely related to, it's the same as the E minor 6. So I'd be thinking. Yeah, do things like that. But then I'd go tone down from the E minor and actually play a D flat half diminished, which would be. Right, so you get different tonality. So you just look for different. You look for different things. I can go up the other way, a tone and a half, and play like a G major 7 type chord. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. And when you get into the modes, I look at modes quite a lot, because I always say to players, learn scales and modes, but learn them just as a means to an end, so that you got a lot of you got more choice. So you wouldn't want to stick around on what's called a Dorian mode.
One mode.
All day.
Yeah, forever. Yeah.
Right, but you can make it more interesting by putting in chromatics. Right. So I've started to incorporate the melodic minor there, because you've got more notes to choose from. You know.
Yeah.
So the reason why I, for example, study tunes like Stella by Starlight is because there's lots of chords in there, and in the teaching that I do, the guitar lessons, I talk about Stella by Starlight because it's got lots of chord changes in it. So you learn how to negotiate in different situations. So when I'm playing, you know, I've got different choices. If I'm playing behind the singer. That E, I can decide to keep that E if I want to when I go to the A augmented, which ordinarily would be, you know. I could go, you know. So I think about the choices of bass notes that I have, and then, as I said, you know, in terms of the minor situation, I'm looking at how, if I'm using different modes, instead of just using the Phrygian, right, or the Dorian, or natural minor, right? I'd be thinking, well, how about the all these the second modes or third modes in both the harmonic and melodic, you know? And I might think, well,
minor,
let's, you know what I mean? Or, so I look for lots of different ideas with chords. See, if I'm doing embellishments, I like to kind of incorporate that E string. You know, and And if I'm actually, I had the pleasure of actually being part of a workshop with the great and late Joe Pass, and one of the things that he said to me is give yourself options. So, for example, in what I call the rundown in Stellar by Starlight, before he goes home to the B flat major 7, you've got the
diminished. Yeah.
Right now, you wouldn't want to play it like that all the time. So you do that once or twice, but then you've got other options. Yeah. So you just sit there and just work out different things and look at how I might extend things. If I'm playing this, right, we all know that chord there, right? Okay, right, that's dominant 7 augmented 9th. I look for different ways of playing it. So I think, well, let me display some notes. So I'll have this. So I've got. Yeah, it just gives it a different flavour. So I've got the D, G, and I've got that's right, yeah. And I've got the G sharp as well. Yeah. So you got those 2 notes together.
Nice. Yeah.
So I spend hours.
Major, minor.
Yeah, I spend hours. In fact, talking about the major minor, in terms of on that E minor situation, you've got so many different options you can play. I can even think, if I go up a 4th and play as if I'm playing an A dominant, what you've got is like that A dominant sound against the E.
Yeah. Yeah, cool.
If I'm going to get a bit cheeky, I'll have the flat 5. So that gives me tons of options, and
options.
So that's what I do. I just think of how can I extend something. What principles am I using? If I'm in a dominant situation, right? We've got our. So I'm always looking for melodies. So I've got that. Arpeggio. And what I'm doing there is that I'm thinking, right, let me go up half a tone and play, the what they call the jazz minor, that melodic minor, so it brings out all those different extensions. I'll go down a tone and play a melodic minor sometimes as well. I'll play an augmented sound, so you've got and then come back home, as it were,
Yeah. I mean, it's a tension relief thing. I'm not a jazz guy. I just know a few of those scales, like augmented or half diminished, and I know the modes. But what I learned is the moment where you kind of interpret a chord in a different way. This is where you can throw in the colors.
Yes.
And I mean, that seems to be the art of jazz. I mean, nobody does it more than a jazz player, I believe.
Yeah,
so
it is about looking what you're doing and asking yourself, how might you play that differently? You can displace things, and sometimes it ends up being a clash against some of what the other musicians are playing. But how you resolve it, how you come out of it, is what's important, because when you listen to classical music, you are hearing harmonic clashes all the time, and it sounds great. So it's a question of whether your ears are attuned to it. If your ears are not attuned to it, it's going to sound like a mess. But in jazz, it's how you play it, how you articulate it, and sometimes it's good to, if you're playing, just think about what you're trying to say and create lines. So if we've got the 2/5 where you're coming from a minor, to the 5 to
Yeah.
the major, which is the home chord, the
Yeah.
1 chord, the resting place. The idea of tension release is that on your 5 chord, right? What would happen is that's where you provide your tension.
Yeah.
Right, so you think about,
And then you're resolving.
Yeah, that's right. You're resolving, and you're thinking about what note you're on. So that's why you have a lot of opportunity on the dominant chords to extend the heck out of them. You know what I mean? And you're back home. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and this and this is kind of my lesson that I give even to any kind of guitar player or for any situation. If you know how to resolve and how to make a good ending, you can almost play anything because it's tension. And of course, there's a lot of intellectual ways how to deal with it. There's emotional ways how to create tension. There's rhythmic ways and jazz ways. But if a human being, if there's tension and if there's a release, you will be happy. And if you know how to close it, how to end it, this is the beauty in life. I mean, everything is well when it ends well.
I totally agree with that. And the other thing I'd say as well is that if we're talking guitar now and talking jazz guitar, I'd say to people, learn the jazz standards, because you pick up lines like... Right, you learn the language. You know what I mean? You kind of learn that language. So slow it down, pick some tunes that easy to cope with at first, right? And then just learn the language. It's just like learning a different spoken language. Listen, etc., and just try to find some melodies. Don't worry about trying to burn around the fret and be super flash and stuff. Just play the things. So as I said, adopt that da 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 da. You have to start like that. You know what I mean? Just do so.
Yeah, sure.
If I move it around. Just slow it down and have fun with it. But I think the art of it is in the listening and in transcribing. Listen to what other people do. Dizzy Gillespie once said he stole from all of them. He stole his ideas from everyone. And all the greats will tell you that. They get their ideas from someplace else, and that's how you learn. Then you try stuff, then you'll stumble across things and think, oh, that's interesting. Why didn't I think about that before? And I would say about scales and modes, I would always encourage people to learn scales and modes, not so that you just use them as is, but it just gives you an idea of the geography of where the notes are, and so you can create melodies from that. You know what I mean? Because if I'm in a D dominant situation, right, I've got this melodic minor overtone scale. So you wouldn't want to play it like, you wouldn't want to go, because if we all played like, it's sound boring, right? But what it is, you take the information and then make a melody out of it, right? So a typical approach that I would use is go. See, I've used exactly the same notes, no neighbour notes, no enclosures or anything like that, and it's a melody. You got the tension there. Then you close. Let's close it. And then you start adding things to it to make it more, Right. And then again, if I'm playing on that I just went up and altered it and came back in.
Yeah.
You know? But
Back.
the idea is just to do it
Nice.
slow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and isn't it great when you hear the blues? Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
It's just fantastic.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So I use different approaches. Anything, I grab anything, bits from classical music, from jazz, from Latin, from reggae, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And just try and enjoy myself, you know. I don't get hang-ups in the way I used to one time. If I've had a not so good gig, I'm like, right, okay, right, get back home and I'm just on it again. I get my cup of tea and I'm just on.
Nice.
You know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Just playing whatever and thinking, oh, I just heard something there. Let me try something else, you know. Playing some lines, not even thinking about it. And then I'll start to strip things down, to start to connect things up, to try and make it sort of make sense, as it were, you know. But I think it's important to enjoy the instrument, because things can be over-theorized.
Absolutely.
And I think that's wrong. I think it's important to understand some theory. I think that's important. Understand your basic scales, your modes, how they relate, how you know modes are created from scales when you harmonize them, etc. Learning chords, looking at how you might do something differently, and do it your way. Do what you want. Do it your way.
Yeah.
That's the thing. There's no right and wrong.
Sure.
You know, it's just sometimes it's become overly theorized and it scares people. And I always like to maybe just try and break it down a bit, so that people get a better understanding and they can warm to it. So, you know, when we talk about triads, that's 3. You know what I mean? So, you know, if you're in that situation, you know, you can go. Right, and if I did that from here. I've used triads, right? Starting from the 5th of the chord, right? Using that like as a root.
Yeah, sure.
And I can do it on the 2nd.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And funny little notes like. Yeah. So just try anything. Be happy with your music and the guitar or whatever you're playing, and just be you, you know. And if that enjoyment is not there and that individual signature is not there, you know, probably need to work on it. We need to have our own voice. You know, none of us speak like anybody else, do we, with our voice? So I think it should be the same with the instrument. You can hear influences, that's fine, but I think we should always, at the end of the day, try and be ourselves, as it were. Ourselves,
yeah. And I totally agree, and that to me comes with every kind of music. This is with all the genres. It doesn't matter if you are into jazz, blues, reggae. It's about your voice, it's about your style, it's about you, your personality, and in the end, you being a human and a happy, hopefully happy people. I mean, sometimes you are sad, and guitar helps you to deal with it. For me, guitar playing can be a theory. You know, I feel much better when I played guitar if I had a bad day or something, and that's the beauty of the instrument. And there are so many ways. Of course, it's kind of endless in a way. If you think of all the options, you can spend your whole entire life with it, and you're never finished. And to me, the point is, don't, as you said, overdo things. Don't put too much pressure on you. I mean, work to a certain amount so your natural ambition is covered, but you shouldn't come to a point where your brain is congested by too many things, and it's
I totally agree, because
for you.
It puts a lot of unnecessary pressure on you, and there's something about I guess all instruments you know, like competitive, but the guitar is for me probably the most competitive instrument. maybe along with saxophonists, because I've seen saxophonists duel and stuff, you know what I mean? But I think there's a lot of pressure, I guess, in all walks of life to perform well. You know, so you can come away feeling good about yourself. And at the end of the day, you know, I asked myself this question, Thomas, was that an honest performance? Was I actually honest about what I just did? And that's anything, whether it be playing football or doing other sports or training or in the office or whatever. Was that an honest performance? And that's why I don't make any separation between music and all the other genres or areas of my life, because I ask the same questions. I get tested in the same way. It's just a different arena.
Absolutely.
So I think that's the thing, you know, is to give an honest performance that, you know, that came from the heart. You weren't trying to be flashy. You were just trying to make a statement insofar as this is what I do and this is how I contributed to the music with the other musicians and with the audience, because we can't forget that there's an audience there. And sometimes I think the mistake, I've had a lot of conversations with promoters over the years who've said that, you know, the mistake that Dave said, you know, some jazz musicians have made is that they've gone up on stage, they don't talk to the audience, sometimes they virtually have their back to the audience, and they're blowing everyone's brains out with notes and stuff, and it's like, okay, all right, so what is there what else? What is there something else you want to speak to us in some other way? So I think how you project yourself in life generally is important. At gigs, I like to talk to people. I like to have fun. I might as well be at home, you know, with my family and friends. You know, I'm just totally relaxed. And we're there to enjoy ourselves and to express ourselves, not to show off, but to express ourselves. And I think,
absolutely,
I think that's really important. And this instrument keeps you very humble. It keeps you humble.
Yeah. And very, very wise words. I think, you know, this was a nice point where we stop this episode. And maybe we do another one in the future. But yeah, as you said, the guitar is, well, maybe the most exciting instrument,
I agree.
at least for me and you. Yeah. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it was a big, big pleasure to have you, Ciyo,
appreciate it,
here with us. And see you soon. All the best. And
you too. Look after.
Take care, man.
Bye.